Now, one popular game theory that has been circulating the internet for basically decades now is reviews are fake. If you see a film or a game or a TV show or a product and the reviews for it are absolutely glowing, but then you actually try the product for yourself and you just think, why are the reviews so good? Why does The Godfather have like a 9 on IMDb when it's just usually a fat man talking with cotton balls in his mouth? A more relevant example is Starfield. Like, you may have noticed that the reviews for that game are absolutely glowing. But despite that, playing the game, it's quite barren. I mean, here, for example, is one clip of someone landing on a planet and then exploring like the randomly generated settlements. They see this like abandoned outpost. They travel for like 2 minutes and then they find the exact same abandoned outpost set up with the exact same layout and the exact same loot. A lot of people tend to gravitate to, you know, big review companies. For example, IGN. It's like, how dare you give that game a 9 and not a 10 out of 10? That Japanese anime game that I love so much.
Girls? I want to see men!
Or how dare you give this game that I absolutely despise a 6 out of 10? You should have gave it a 1.
The gunplay and movement is top notch, and honestly, it feels better than last year. But here's the thing. You could say almost all of that about the last few Call of Duty games, and if you already played those to the point where you got tired of them and naturally moved on to other things, I can see it being hard to get really excited about jumping back in for more of the same here. That being said, I can't deny that the Call of Duty multiplayer formula is so finely honed, even when it doesn't feel new, it still feels fun.
Basically, one thing you'll notice with reviews like IGN is if people don't like the game, they will hate anything above like a 4, but then vice versa. You know, if they're looking at a new Nintendo game like Zelda Breath of Fire or whatever, if it's not an 11 out of 10, they will lose their mind. But one company has been doing this for a very long time that a lot of people have actually been really overlooking, which is Rotten Tomatoes. Now, if you look at Rotten Tomatoes on the website, it is very divisive. So like Metacritic and other websites, it will use 2 kinds of review categories. For example, one for the critics and then one for the general public. But one thing you'll notice with Rotten Tomatoes is the absolute disparity between the general public's opinion and then also the critics' consensus. So one thing you'll notice is this schism. Like, the critics will give like a film a very good rating and then the public will give it a very bad rating, or vice versa. The critics might hate a film, but then the general public, they'll love it. Now, I did mention Metacritic earlier, but a really good example of that is, again, like I mentioned earlier, Starfield. Just look at the reviews.
Big question from many. Why did you not optimize this game for PC?
We did. It's running great. It is a next-gen PC game. We really do push the technology, so you may need to upgrade your PC for this game, but it's got a lot of great stuff going on in it, and the fans are responding awesome.
The only game I can think of at the minute that has a worse reception was like The Last of Us 2, because Joel died in like the first 10 minutes of the game and no one liked that.
Jesus! Oh my god, are they gonna fucking kill Ellie next? What the fuck is going on here? I got so many questions.
So Vulture came out with an article that basically said a PR firm has been manipulating the Rotten Tomatoes movie scores for over 5 years by paying critics directly. So this PR firm is called Bunker 15, and what they're basically doing is paying $50 or more for you to basically write a positive review. Now, the thing is, what they seem to do, this very weird business model, they recruit purposely obscure critics. So they don't get anyone like Armand White. For example, if you know Armand White, he's basically infamous for saying any bad film is good and any good film is bad. They don't recruit anyone with actual notoriety, more just actual literal who's. Now, the funny thing is about this whole situation is the amount of money that each critic gets for like basically a paid shield review, it's never disclosed. But the thing is, Rotten Tomatoes have came out themselves and basically said it prohibits reviewing based on financial incentive. I mean, a really good example here is if you play, for example, a mobile game, it might come up and say, you know, oh, could you give us 5 stars, please? And then it's like, you know, you'll get the options of yes, no, or maybe later. That's the most they can do, because usually before that, they'd actually try to incentivize you to give a 5-star review by giving you some kind of reward. But that is completely illegal. Now, what Rotten Tomatoes have done at the minute is tried to unlist numerous Bunker 15 films, because obviously all the reviews were basically just paid shills. Now, Rotten Tomatoes did also put out a statement saying, we take the integrity of our scores seriously and do not tolerate any attempts to manipulate them. We have a dedicated team who monitors our platforms regularly and thoroughly investigates and resolves any suspicious activity. Now, this kind of does come across as like a, oh no, you got me, Walter White putting his hands up in the bedroom.
You got me.
But now you've actually had pretty successful films like Ophelia get completely taken off Rotten Tomatoes because the majority of the reviews were just completely fraudulent. Now, it's funny because a lot of people have had game theories for ages that, like, you know, some reviewers are paid shills, but this pretty much confirms it. So, for example, the way that Rotten Tomatoes works is once you review a film, it's given a certain score. Anything above a 60% is given like the fresh rating, and anything below 60% is usually called rotten. Now, that film I mentioned earlier, Ophelia, I think it had a rating of like 46%, which gives it the rotten rating. But after Bunker 15 started for, you know, paid shills to come on board and start giving the film really good reviews, it jumped up to, I think, a 62%, which, you know, makes it fresh. Now, that can really be the make or break situation, whether a film is going to be recommended to more people, because if you log on to Rotten Tomatoes and you see something as a fresh film, there's a higher chance that you're going to seek it out yourself and watch it. So if you head to Daisy Ridley's actors page, you'll actually see every film that they've been in listed except Ophelia. Now, these are some big films. You've got actors like, for example, Naomi Watts, Clive Owen, George McKay, and they've had all of their pages scrubbed of Ophelia because obviously they were in a film. It wasn't very good. And then the producers or directors have tried to cope by basically trying to get paid reviews on board. Now, the thing is, I kind of get it, okay? I mean, I don't agree with it, but, you know, if you've worked so long on a film or a TV show or, I don't know, anything or a game, and it flops, it sucks. It really does suck seeing everyone tear you to complete shreds. I totally empathize with that. But by then getting a bunch of paid shills on board to basically say, oh, the product is good, it's not a very good look. It looks very disingenuous, and then that will affect your credibility going on to future projects. But again, it does bring up the question. I mean, I've seen this time and time again. For example, companies like IGN, do they really pay or get paid to do fake shill ads? I remember, for example, how much IGN used to get shit on for basically saying Call of Duty, this one, it's a 9, it's an 8, it's a 9. They'd never do a 10 because a 10 is just a complete commitment and it's a bit too obvious, but they would always give an 8 or a 9, which is that kind of, it's near perfection. It's just not quite perfection. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really have proof if IGN are like rigging any kind of votes, but to be fair, yeah, I mean, they probably are. That is until I appear on IGN, like doing some kind of podcast or interview, or I get like a paid sponsor. Then I will completely retract my statement. But yeah, what's the moral of today's story? Game reviews le bad. That's why I do 4-hour video on game and basically say, it all right. It all right.
Shimmy, shimmy, yay, shimmy, day, shimmy, ah, Dre, fa la la la.